Welcome to you both. I'd like to do policy before we do politics, and certainly there is ample subject for both. Let's start with the policy, Senator Graham, and the specifics on Iran and the negotiations. The deadline for the political framework agreement with Iran over its nuclear program is 3 weeks away. The conversations are virtually ongoing and have been for 15 months with multiple extensions. I'm interested in how you assess the talks so far.
Well, one, I'm glad we're negotiating because diplomacy would be the right answer versus war. Do you all agree with that? Nobody wants another war with anyone. Having said that, rather than prejudging the negotiations and a deal, what I would like to do is have Congress to look at the deal, debate the deal, and a vote on the deal. If it is a good deal, I would vote for it, because let me tell you what happens if you play politics with the deal. If a Republican wants to vote no just because we don't like Obama, then your political resume and history will look very bad, because we all need a good deal. On the other hand, a bad deal is a nightmare for us, Israel, and the world, and it is a way to stop a bad deal. Time will tell, but between now and until that day comes, let us commit ourselves to make sure that as many eyes as possible are on this deal before it becomes binding.
How do you define how do you define a bad deal?
A bad deal would be a deal that would allow Iran one day to develop a nuclear weapon under the guise. We're not clapping for the nuclear weapon. A bad deal would be locking in place an enrichment program that is only monitored by the UN, and the only thing between a breakout to a nuclear weapon is the UN. How does that make you feel? The only thing between you, Israel, is the UN in terms of keeping Iran in check. A good deal would be a peaceful nuclear power program that the Iranians claim they want that could never turn into a weapon. That's a good deal. Anything beyond that's a bad deal.
Senator Cardin, what is your take on this?
First, thank you all for being here. This is extremely, we need you on Capitol Hill, so thank you for coming to Washington. It's great to be here with Lindsey Graham. The two of us are good friends, and yes, we do work together, a Democrat and Republican, and there is strong bipartisan support for Israel, and we're going to make sure that we maintain that support. The two of us completely agree that a good deal is what we need. We want a diplomatic solution. We want Iran to give up its nuclear weapon program. We want Iran to be in compliance with its international obligations. That has to be a very transparent agreement, an agreement that prevents Iran from breaking out to a nuclear weapon, and one in which we have inspectors there on the ground, total access to all parts of Iran to make sure that we know what they're doing. Because quite frankly, you can't trust Iran.
Right.
You must make sure that you have an enforceable agreement.
So Senator Cardin, you're one
and he's the Democrat.
Senator Cardin, you're one of 11 Democrats who favors increased sanctions if you don't get a deal by the 24th. Prospects for a deal by the 24th, and do you expect your colleagues in the Senate to go along with you on this?
Well, let's make it clear. The only reason that Iran is negotiating with the United States and our coalition partners is because we, the United States Congress, and the United States led with strong sanctions and isolated Iran. That's the only reason. They don't want to voluntarily give up their nuclear weapon program. So we've got to keep the heat on. We've got to keep strong sanctions against Iran. And yes, we hope we have an agreement. If we don't, then we need to tighten those sanctions and make them stronger. And I have no doubt whatsoever that Congress will pass stronger sanctions if there's no agreement reached.
Senator Graham, we're watching the talks, the international talks, and I'm wondering what you make of this international group, right, that is negotiating with Iran. Marching in lockstep, U.S. leading?
I don't really have a lot of faith in the Russians to get us to the promised land.
But this is a very difficult situation.
It is
right?
a very
where
difficult.
The Russians are going these days.
And the outcome affects the entire world, not just Israel and the United States. But put in context what's going on during the negotiations. As we negotiate with the Iranians, they have toppled 4 Arab capitals. What would they do with sanction relief money? Do you think they would build schools and hospitals? Given their behavior today, they're likely to invest in their military to wreak more havoc. As we speak, they have toppled the pro-American government in Yemen. They have supported the Houthis, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. Now we don't have the eyes and ears we need because Iran has destabilized Yemen. Assad is a puppet of Iran who's killed 220,000 of his own people. Hezbollah is a nightmare for Israel and Lebanon and the entire region. And Shiite militias backed by Iran are wreaking havoc all over Iraq. These are the people we're trying to negotiate with about a nuclear weapon. This is what they're doing without a nuclear weapon. What do you think they would do if they had one? And what do you think they're intending to do long term? Become a member of the family of nations? So it bothers me greatly that as we negotiate on their nuclear ambitions, they're using their conventional forces and their political influence to destabilize the region. So the first thing in a deal, P5+1, you got to know who you're dealing with. They lie, they cheat, they're not trustworthy, they've killed Americans, they would destroy Israel tomorrow if they could. So understand who you're dealing with.
Gentlemen, let me ask you both, and Senator Cardin, why don't you go first, just very briefly. If these talks have been extended multiple times, if a deal isn't reached by the 24th, then what?
Well, we got to have deadlines. We've got to reach agreements, or we have to take other actions. I think that is clear. It's already been delayed at least once or twice already. Iran's got to make a decision whether it's going to move forward or not. We've heard conflicting views as to whether they'll enter into an agreement or not. We know that it's only because of the U.S. pressure that we've been able to get as far as we've gotten. But the bottom line is that Iran has to make a decision. If they decide not to move forward, then we have to toughen the sanctions. We have to toughen the isolation. We've got to work with the international community. They are in violation of the UN resolutions. We've got to make sure there are consequences to their actions. And I think we're prepared to do that. But as Lindsey has said, this is not just about Israel's security. This is about the security of the region. It's not just Israel talking to us about what Iran is doing. Every moderate Arab state's talking to us about whether Iran is going to be able to move forward with their nuclear weapon program, because it affects their security. This affects the regional security, affects global security. So there's a lot at stake.
Can I just build on that? It's commonly viewed that Israel has a nuclear arsenal. They will not tell you that, but if I were you, I would not bet against that. Not one Arab nation has felt a need to go nuclear because Israel is perceived to have a nuclear weapon, because they know this democracy in Israel is not going to wake up one day and wipe them off the map. They're a democratic state that truly is trying to coexist peacefully in the region. Every Arab leader, Ben hit a good point here, that I've met with, and I've met with them all, have told me to my face, anything you give the Iranians, we're going to want that and more. The Arabs do not trust the Shia Persians with a nuclear capability, and a bad deal that leads to nuclear proliferation in the Mideast is a nightmare for the world, and I'm afraid that's where we're headed.
Gentlemen, we're here at a challenging time in the relationship between the United States and Israel, and the Prime Minister will be speaking to the Congress in just a couple of days. And that has provoked concerns about the relationship. I want to ask you what your take is on this and how these turbulent waters should be navigated. Senator Cardin.
Well, the circumstances surrounding the invitation is not how it should have been. We all understand that. But don't lose focus. The bad guy is Iran. Iran's who's violating international agreements. The focus must be on the Iranian negotiations. And this gives us a chance to come together in a strong, united way to make sure that we are focused on what is necessary for an acceptable deal with Iran on its nuclear weapons. And secondly, we can never allow Israel to become a political wedge issue. It's too important to the United States. It's got to be off limits.
Senator Graham, are you worried about the relationship?
I look forward to listening to the Prime Minister of our best friend in the region. I will be there on the front row. I will listen to his evaluation of where we're at, what a good deal would look like to Israel, what a bad deal would look like. Then I'll have to decide what's best for America. If I had to pick, Frank, between BB's speech and the 10 to 15,000 AIPAC members, I would pick the AIPAC members to be in Washington. Because you are going to go to your representatives and your senators, and you're going to lend voice to the U.S. Israel relationship better than any politician could ever hope to do. You are the Marines. The Marines have landed in Washington at a time we need somebody here. I welcome the Prime Minister's speech. I look forward to hearing what he has to say, but thank God you are here, because I look forward to you coming to Capitol Hill, lobbying for our bill to require Congress to review any deal with Iran before it becomes binding. And I want to remind you of what your core principles say. AIPAC will support measures to prevent the development, acquisition, and proliferation by Iran, Israel's neighbors, and terrorist organizations of weapons of mass destruction and the means of their delivery. This is one of your core principles. This is why you should be here this week. Make sure you live up to these core principles. To my AIPAC friends, you're going to make more difference than any speech any politician could ever deliver.
I have been in this town for a long time and covered a lot of things, and I've covered a lot of sort of ups and downs in this relationship, as in the relationship we've seen with Britain, the special relationship there, or anywhere else. Senator Cardin, just very briefly, how do you assess the U.S.-Israeli relationship over time and where we are now?
I think it's very strong. I think Americans understand the importance of Israel to the United States, and we understand the importance of that relationship. It's our trusted ally in that region. We share intelligence information. We share values. It's a long-standing relationship that has benefited both countries. We also understand how important that relationship is to the State of Israel, that the State of Israel is isolated internationally. Just look at the votes in the United Nations if you want to see the vulnerability of Israel. So this relationship is very, very important. So I think it's strong. I think it's bipartisan. I think it's bicameral. I think it's the administration and Congress, and we need to make sure that we work on keeping it in that healthy, strong way in this country.
Senator Cardin, another issue, and Senator Graham, jump in on this, and that is the boycott, divestment, and sanctions campaign that's out there. You've been outspoken on this one. I'm wondering where you think this is going and what it means right now.
Well, thanks for mentioning that, because we could use your help. There's going to be legislation introduced this week by Senator Portman and I concerning BDS legislation. Israel, let me try to explain that. I already indicated, Senator Graham and I have talked about what we can do about it, but Israel's isolated internationally. We know that. Look at the UN votes, look how they're discriminated against. The United States enters into trade agreements with countries we agree with. There's a free trade agreement between Israel and the United States, because we understand how important that is to world commerce. When you look at Israel and what it's able to do, a small country with its technology and innovation and scientists, it's important for Israel, it's important for the United States, it's important for the global community. When you have boycotts, divestiture, and sanctions legislation, you're discriminating against Israel, and the United States should take stands to make sure other countries that want trade agreements with the United States do not participate in BDS against Israel. And that's what this legislation will do, and we need your help in order to get it done. Thank you.
Senator Graham, anything you'd like to add?
If I'm not a co-sponsor, I will be. This is like coming to church for me. So,
Really?
I'm counting it. Tell all the Baptists back home I was there. And all the Baptists back home will be there with you, too, by the way. So, bipartisanship. AIPAC is the glue that holds this relationship together. Don't ever lose sight of that. You matter now, you're going to matter more in the future. God bless you. If you were not here, I don't know what would happen. Israel ran out of rockets during the last war with Hamas. Remember that episode? A Congress that can't agree on Sunday should be a day off. The most dysfunctional place I've been in a while. In about 2 hours, Harry Reid and Mitch McConnell, when the Democrats were in charge, passed a $225 million appropriations bill to fund the Iron Dome without one objection in the United States Senate. And can I just add one other thing?
Yeah.
I am now, as the Republicans taking over the body. If you're a Democrat, we'll probably screw this up. If you're a Republican, let's enjoy it while we have it. I am now the chairman of the Foreign Relations Subcommittee on Appropriations. What does that mean? That means that all the money that goes to support the UN and the State Department, Palestinians, and every other ally and enemy we have in the world comes through my committee. Ben's legislation is absolutely important to put countries on notice. I promise you, as chairman of this subcommittee, I'm going to put the United Nations on notice. If they continue to marginalize and delegitimize and accept the anti-Semitism that's running rampant through Europe, we're going to cut their money off too.
Gentlemen, in the very couple of minutes we have left, let's zoom out for a minute and look at the bigger, broader regional challenge beyond Iran, Syria, Iraq, growth, terrible growth of the Islamic State, fall of the government in Yemen. As you look at the region, the big picture, the big trends, what are you each seeing, Senator?
Well, I see danger. There's no question about it. This is a great risk to the United States and to the civilized world when you're dealing with people who will cut off heads of people that disagree with them, that have no ethics whatsoever. This is an extreme risk. So yes, the United States has to be engaged in the leadership position, and we have to get local support. We don't want to make this a crusade. I've heard that from more and more from Arab leaders, moderate Arab leaders. They have to take care of their own ground needs, but they need our support to cut off the ability of ISIS and ISIL to be able to carry out the type of campaigns they are. So in Iraq, we're working with the government, we're working with the Sunni tribal leaders, we're working with the Kurdish military. In Syria, we're working with the opposition. We have to be engaged. In Yemen, we're going to have to be engaged because this is a real threat against the civilized world, and the United States must be in the leadership.
Senator.
I see radical Islam running wild in the Mideast. That's what I see. It is radical Islam. And if you don't admit that, you'll never defeat it. The good news for us, most people in the Islamic world, in the Muslim faith, do not want to turn their daughters, fathers do not want to turn their daughters over to ISIL. The bad news for us is they're going unchecked. If I could find a way to defend this country from radical Islam without having a forward deployed presence, I would choose it. It is our fight. The King of Jordan is right about this, and he's next if we don't watch it. That this is a war against humanity. They want to master religion just as the Nazis wanted to master race. That's what this is about. And they will kill and imprison and enslave those who are different. They will lose. The only question is how many must die before the day comes. It is in our national security interest, ladies and gentlemen, to stop this barbaric behavior before it gets stronger. Every day that there are foreign fighters flowing into Iraq and Syria with Western passports, that's the day they could come back here and hit us. This is our war too. This is a war of good people against evil. And there's only one outcome that is acceptable. They lose, we win.
Senators, I find it fascinating, I think we all do, to listen to your perspectives on this and your bipartisanship, and we can only hope that your bipartisanship spreads across the land and across the United States Congress. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking Senators Ben Cardin and Lindsey Graham. Thank you.